I wiped my mother-in-law's vomit for 3 years, all while my husband played golf. I changed her diapers, and I held her hand through the darkest nights of her dementia. But the day she died, my husband didn't just forget to cry. He handed me a crumpled envelope with $500 inside. And then he told me to get out of the house, before the funeral guest even left. He called it severance pay, like I was a fired maid, instead of his wife of 8 years. While he and his sister were popping champagne, celebrating finally being free of their mother's burden, they had no idea. They had no idea that the old woman they ignored had one last trick up her sleeve. They thought they were inheriting a mansion, but they didn't know the truth. That senile old woman, she had hidden a secret document under her mattress. A document that would turn their celebration into a bankruptcy filing. But before I tell you how I watched their world crumble, tell me in the comments, have you ever sacrificed everything for someone who didn't appreciate it? Like and subscribe for the ultimate karma. It is funny how grief works. For some people, it brings tears. For my husband Mark and his sister Linda, it apparently brought out a calculator. Let me take you back to the moment my life shattered. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the day of the funeral. We were back at the house. This was the beautiful sprawling Victorian estate that Mark had been bragging about to his friends for years. My inheritance, he would call it. Even while his mother was still breathing in the next room, the house was filled with people eating potato salad and whispering sorry for your loss. I was in the kitchen, elbow deep in soapy water, scrubbing the dishes from the reception. I was exhausted. My eyes were swollen shut from 3 days of nonstop crying. My back ached from the hard wooden chairs at the funeral home. I felt hollowed out, like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped out everything that made me. I genuinely loved Rose. She wasn't just my mother-in-law. She was the mother I lost when I was 20. She was the only one who saw me. Mark and Linda walked into the kitchen. They were laughing. Actually laughing. Mark was loosening his tie, and Linda was checking her makeup in the reflection of the microwave. They didn't look like 2 children who had just buried their mother. They looked like 2 lottery winners waiting to cash a ticket. Mark closed the kitchen door softly, cutting off the noise of the guests. The air in the room suddenly felt heavy, suffocating. "Sarah?" Mark started, using that tone he uses when he thinks he is being reasonable. The business voice. "We need to talk about the timeline." I paused, a soapy plate in my hand. "Timeline?" I asked, my voice raspy. "Timeline for what?" "The thank you cards. I can start them tomorrow, Mark. I am just really tired today." Linda coughed. It was a sharp, cruel sound. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms over her expensive black silk dress. "No, sweetie. Not the cards. The timeline for the house. We are listing it on Monday." I froze. The plate slipped from my fingers into the water with a dull splash. "Listing it, but Mark, I live here. Rose isn't even cold yet." "Well, that is the thing," Mark said, avoiding eye contact. He began picking at a piece of lint on his suit jacket. "With Mom gone, the house goes to me and Linda. And the market is really hot right now. We want to sell fast. Split the cash. Liquidate the assets." "Liquidate the assets?" I repeated, feeling a cold shiver run down my spine. "Mark, this is our home. Where are we going to go? We haven't saved anything in 3 years. Because we lived on one income so I could care for your mother. We have nowhere to go." Mark looked at Linda, then back at the floor. He took a deep breath. "Actually, Sarah, we aren't going anywhere. I am getting an apartment in the city closer to work. I signed the lease yesterday." My brain stopped working. "You signed a lease? While we were at the wake?" "I think." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were cold. "Dad, I think this is a good time for us to take a break. A permanent one. Separation." My jaw dropped. "You are leaving me? Today? On the day of your mother's funeral?" "It is not just that," Linda chimed in, stepping forward like a viper protecting its nest. "Look, Sarah, let us be honest. It has been a long time coming. You were great with Mom, really. A glorified nurse. But now the job is done. Mark has been unhappy for years. You are always tired. You are always in sweatpants. You smell like medicine and old people. You are just not the same fun girl he married. I smell like medicine because I was wiping your mother's vomit." I screamed, the anger finally piercing through the shock. "I smell like medicine because while you were in Cabo posting bikini photos, I was changing adult diapers. While Mark was working late." Shia, looking panicked at the door. "Keep your voice down. You are embarrassing us. The neighbors are outside." "I am embarrassing you?" I laughed, but it sounded like a sob. Tears started streaming down my face again. I gave up 3 years of my career. I gave up my friends. I saved you thousands of dollars a month in nursing home fees because you were too cheap to pay for professional care. And you lived here rent-free," Linda countered coldly. "You didn't pay a dime in rent or utilities for 3 years. So let us call it even. We spoke to the real estate agent this morning. They want to stage the house on Wednesday, which means you need to be out by Tuesday morning." "Tuesday?" I whispered. "Mark, please. I have no money. I have no job. I have nowhere to go." Mark shrugged. It was such a casual gesture that it broke my heart more than his words. He reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a white envelope. He tossed it onto the wet counter. It landed in a puddle of soapy water. "Here," he said. "There is $500 in there. That should cover a moving truck and a week at a motel. Consider it's Severance pay." Severance pay? Like I was an employee they were firing. Like our marriage. Our life. My sacrifice. It was just a transaction. I looked at the envelope soaking up the water. Then I looked at my husband of 8 years. I didn't recognize him. I realized then that I had never really known him. I had fallen in love with a mask. And now that the only person who kept him accountable was gone, the mask had fallen off. Greed had turned him into a monster. "You are evil," I said quietly. "Rose would be ashamed of you. Both of you." "Mom is dead," Linda said sharply, checking her watch. "She doesn't care. And frankly, the house was the only thing of value she had left after spending so much on her medical bills. We aren't going to let you squat here and delay our inheritance. We have plans for that money." Mark opened the back door. The air outside was crisp and cold, a stark contrast to the suffocating heat of the kitchen. "Just pack your things, Sarah. Don't make a scene. I will have my lawyer send you the divorce papers next week. Try to be out before I come back to check the locks on Tuesday." I didn't scream. I didn't throw the plates at their heads. Even though I wanted to, I was too shocked. Powerless, I walked past them, bumping shoulders with Linda, who dusted off her dress as if I were contagious. I walked up the stairs to the room I had shared with Mark, and I started packing a suitcase. I could hear them downstairs, laughing with the guests again, accepting condolences for the mother they had ignored for years. I heard Mark say, "Yes, it is a relief, honestly. She was suffering so much." Liar. She wasn't suffering. We had good days. We had days where she laughed. Days where she told me stories about her childhood. He wouldn't know, because he was never there. I packed my clothes. I packed my toothbrush. And then, I went into Rose's room one last time. It still smelled like lavender and old paper. The bed was made perfectly, just how I left it after the coroner took her away. Her reading glasses were still on the nightstand. I sat on the edge of the bed and wept. I wasn't crying for Mark. I wasn't crying for the house. I was crying because I missed my friend. I remembered. 2 weeks ago, Rose had a moment of clarity. It happened sometimes in the late afternoon. The fog of dementia would lift, and she would be her again. She had called me close. Her voice was weak. Barely a whisper. "Sarah," she had said, gripping my hand with surprising strength. "Pull up the loose floorboard under the rug." In the closet, I thought she was hallucinating again. "It is okay, Rose. Rest now." "No," she had insisted, her eyes wide and desperate. "Listen to me. Mark and Linda. They are waiting like vultures. I see how they look at the furniture. I see how they look at me. They are waiting for me to die." It broke my heart to hear her say it. But I knew she was right. "Under the floorboard," she whispered, "there is a package. Don't open it until I am gone. And do not open it until they try to hurt you. Because they will, Sarah. They will try to crush you." I had found the package. A thick, heavy manila envelope wrapped in plastic. I had moved it to the bottom of my old duffel bag, forgetting about it in the chaos of her passing and the funeral arrangements. Now sitting in her empty room, with the sound of my husband celebrating my eviction downstairs, I remembered. I ran to the closet where I had shoved my duffel bag. I dug through the old clothes until my fingers brushed against the cold plastic. I pulled it out. It was heavy. I didn't open it yet. I just put it in my purse, slinging the strap over my shoulder. I grabbed my suitcase and walked out of the room. I walked downstairs. Mark and Linda were in the hallway, saying goodbye to the last guests. They looked up as I came down the stairs. "Leaving already?" Mark asked loud enough for the neighbors to hear, putting on his sad face. "Doctor safe, honey. Take some time for yourself." He leaned in close to my ear as he opened the front door for me. "Leave the house keys on the table, and don't come back." I put the keys on the table next to the vase of funeral lilies. I looked him in the eye. "You are right, Mark. The job is done. I hope the money keeps you warm at night." I walked out to my old beat-up Honda, the one we never fixed because we spent the repair money on Rose's special dietary supplements. It took 3 tries to start the engine. I drove away from the Victorian mansion. I drove away from the garden I had planted for Rose. I drove away from the last 3 years of my life. I drove to a cheap motel 3 towns over. The Bluebird Inn. It was the kind of place where the neon sign flickered and the carpet smelled like stale cigarettes. I paid for a week with the cash Mark had thrown at me. I sat on the lumpy bed, staring at the peeling wallpaper. I felt like I was drowning. I was 32 years old, divorced, homeless. Then, I looked at my purse. Rose's envelope. I reached in and pulled it out. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold it. I grabbed the motel's cheap plastic ice bucket knife and sliced open the tape. I poured the contents onto the bedspread. It wasn't cash. It wasn't a letter. It was a stack of legal documents bound in a blue folder. And on top of the folder was a handwritten note on Rose's personal stationery. I picked up the note first. "My dear Sarah, if you are reading this, then my fears have come true. My children have shown you who they really are. For years I watched you care for me while they waited for the check. I may have lost my memory sometimes, but I never lost my sight. I saw who loved me, and I saw who loved my money. They think I am leaving them everything. They think I was too sick to change my will. I met with my attorney, Mr. Henderson, 6 months ago. On a day Mark thought I was asleep. Turn the page, my daughter, and take back what is yours." I dropped the note. My heart was pounding in my throat like a drum. I opened the blue folder. The first page was titled, "Last Will and Testament of Rosemarie Patterson." I scanned the legalese. I skipped past the burial's instructions, and then I saw it. Article 4. Distribution of assets. To my son Mark Patterson, and my daughter Linda Patterson. I leave the sum of $1 each. This amount is reflective of the care and affection they showed me in my final years. I gasped. $1. She left them $1. My eyes raced down the page to Sarah Patterson, my daughter-in-law, who washed me, fed me, and loved me when my own blood turned away. I leave the entirety of my estate, including the property at 42 Oak Street, all contents therein, my investment portfolio with Vanguard, and my antique jewelry collection. I read it again and again. Everything, the house, the stocks. I looked at the date on the will. It was signed, witnessed, and notarized 6 months ago. It was ironclad. I sat back against the headboard, the papers crinkling in my hand. Mark and Linda were at that house right now. They were probably measuring the windows for new curtains. They were probably calculating how much they would get for the antique chandelier. They thought they had kicked me out of their house. But according to the paper in my hand, they weren't trespassing in my house. I looked at the clock. It was 7 o'clock in the evening. Henderson's card was stapled to the back of the will. I picked up my phone. I didn't care what time it was. I dialed the number. "Hello?" A gruff voice answered. "Mr. Henderson?" I said, my voice shaking but gaining strength with every word. "This is Sarah Patterson. I just opened the envelope." There was a pause on the line. Then I heard a warm, satisfied chuckle. "Hello, Sarah. I have been waiting for your call. Rose told me you would call when they finally pushed you too far. Are you ready to execute the will?" I looked at the $500 severance pay Mark had given me. I thought about the $1 Rose had left him. A fire ignited in my chest. The sadness evaporated, replaced by the cold, hard steel of justice. "I am ready," I said. "I am free tomorrow morning," the lawyer said. "But if you want to make an impression, I can have the sheriff meet us there in an hour." I smiled. A wicked, dangerous smile. "Mr. Henderson," I said, "I have a feeling my husband isn't going to leave quietly." It was 8 o'clock at night when I pulled back into the driveway of the Victorian mansion. The house was blazing with lights. Every single window was glowing. It looked like they were having a party. My heart was pounding against my ribs. But this time it was not from fear. It was from anticipation. I looked in the rearview mirror. Behind my beat-up Honda were 2 other cars. One was a sleek black sedan belonging to Mr. Henderson, the lawyer. The other was a sheriff's patrol car. Its lights off, but its presence impossible to ignore. I stepped out of the car. The cold air hit my face, but I did not feel it. I felt electric. Mr. Henderson stepped out of his car holding a thick briefcase. The sheriff, a tall man named Officer Miller, adjusted his belt and nodded at me. "Ready, Mrs. Patterson?" Mr. Henderson asked. I have never been more ready in my life. We walked up the stone path. I could hear music coming from inside. Jazz. The same playlist Mark had refused to listen to with me just 4 hours ago. I did not use my key. I wanted them to answer the door. I wanted to see their faces. I rang the doorbell. Once. The music stopped. I heard heavy footsteps approaching. The lock clicked and the door swung open. It was Mark. He was holding a glass of expensive scotch. My father-in-law's vintage bottle that he had been saving for a special occasion. His tie was off. His shirt unbuttoned. He looked relaxed. Wealthy. Until he saw me. His face dropped. The arrogance turned into annoyance instantly. "Sarah?" he groaned, blocking the doorway with his body. "I told you to leave the keys and get out. What part of don't come back did you not understand? Do you need another $500 or something?" Then Linda appeared behind him, holding a glass of wine. "Oh my God, is she back? Mark, just call the cops. She is trespassing." I smiled. "Actually, Linda, that is a great idea. Calling the cops." I stepped aside. Officer Miller stepped into the light of the porch. followed by Mr. Henderson in his sharp gray suit. Mark's eyes went wide. He almost dropped his scotch. "Officer? What is going on?" "Look, my soon-to-be ex-wife is having a hard time accepting the separation. We don't want to press charges if she leaves now." Officer Miller did not smile. "We aren't here for her, Mr. Patterson. We are here to escort the rightful owner of the property into her home, and to ensure the peace is kept while you vacate the premises." Mark laughed nervously. "What are you talking about? I am the owner. My mother died 3 days ago. I am her only son." Mr. Henderson cleared his throat and stepped forward. "Mark, Linda, may we come in? It is 20 degrees out here and we have some legal matters to discuss." Mark looked confused, but he stepped back to let us in. We walked into the living room. It was a mess. They had already started inventory. There were sticky notes on everything. The antique clock had a note that said, "Sell, $2,000. The paintings were taken off the walls and stacked on the floor. They were stripping the house bare. "Who is this guy?" Linda asked, pointing her wine glass at Mr. Henderson. "I am Rose Patterson's attorney," Mr. Henderson said calmly, placing his briefcase on the dining table right next to a half-eaten pizza they had ordered. "And I am the executor of her estate." "We didn't know Mom had a lawyer," Mark said, narrowing his eyes. "She was senile. She couldn't sign anything. Rose was diagnosed with early-stage dementia 3 years ago," Mr. Henderson corrected him. "But she had moments of perfect clarity. And during one of those moments 6 months ago, she called me. She underwent a full competency evaluation by 2 independent doctors before signing her new will." Mark set his glass down. His hands were shaking slightly. "New will? What new will?" "The one from 2015 leaves everything to us." "That will has been revoked," Mr. Henderson said. He clicked open his briefcase. The sound was like a gunshot in the silent room. He pulled out the document I had found under the floorboards. "Shall I read the relevant parts?" Mr. Henderson asked. He didn't wait for an answer. He put on his reading glasses. "Article 4, Section A, to my son Mark Patterson and my daughter Linda Patterson." Mr. Henderson paused for effect. Mark and Linda leaned forward, greed written all over their faces. "I leave the sum of $1 each." Silence. Total deafening silence. You could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. "1," Linda whispered, her voice trembling. $1? As in 100,000? "No," Henderson said plainly. "1 single dollar. For quarters. 100 pennies. "That is insane," Mark shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "She was crazy. She didn't know what she was doing. We are her children. She knew exactly what she was doing," I said, speaking up for the first time. "She watched you. For 3 years she watched you ignore her. She watched you treat her like a burden. She watched you calculate her death like it was a payday. You manipulated her. You poisoned her mind. Read the rest." Mr. Henderson cleared his throat again. "Section B, to my daughter-in-law Sarah Patterson, the only person who treated me with dignity. I leave the remainder of my estate. This includes the property at 40 to Oak Street, the vacation home in Florida, my investment accounts totaling $1,200,000. Linda dropped her wine glass. It shattered on the floor, red wine splashing onto the white rug she had just claimed she wanted to keep. Mark looked like he had been punched in the stomach. He staggered back and fell onto the sofa. $1.2 million, he mumbled. No, this is a nightmare." "It is real," Mr. Henderson said, handing Mark a copy of the document. "And since the deed to the house transferred to Mrs. Sarah Patterson effectively upon Rose's death, you are currently trespassing in her home." I walked over to Mark. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with panic. The arrogance was gone. The Severance pay attitude was gone. He looked like a scared little boy. "Sarah," he stammered. "Baby, listen. We can fix this. I didn't mean what I said earlier. I was grieving. I was stressed. You know I love you, right? We have been married for 8 years. We can't let money come between us." I looked at him. I really looked at him. I remembered him throwing the envelope in the soapy water. I remembered him telling me to leave before the funeral guests were gone. I remembered him playing golf while I held his dying mother's hand. "You are right, Mark," I said softly. "We shouldn't let money come between us." Hope flickered in his eyes. "We are a team. We can manage this money together. We can invest it. I have some great ideas for a startup." I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the soggy, crumpled white envelope he had given me 4 hours ago. I tossed it onto his lap. "Here," I said. "There is $500 in there. Consider it Severance pay." Mark stared at the envelope. "Sarah." "Get out," I said. My voice was ice cold. "But it is 8:30 at night. Linda shrieked. "Where are we supposed to go?" "You can go to a hotel," I said. "Or maybe Mark's new apartment in the city?" "Oh wait. Did you actually sign the lease, Mark? Or were you waiting for the inheritance money to pay the deposit?" Mark went pale. He hadn't signed it. He didn't have the money. "Officer Miller," I said, turning to the sheriff, "I would like these strangers removed from my property. Now." Officer Miller stepped forward, his hand resting on his belt. "You heard the lady, folks. Grab your coats. Leave the items that belong to the house. That means the scotch, the rug." Mark stood up slowly. He looked at the luxury house he thought was his. He looked at the sister who had poisoned his ear against me. And then he looked at me. The wife he had discarded like trash. "You will regret this," he spat out. "I will sue you. I will take everything." "You can try," Mr. Henderson said cheerfully. "But I wrote this will myself. It is bulletproof. Now move along. You are wasting my client's time." They walked out into the cold night. They didn't have time to pack bags. They didn't have their cars loaded with antiques. They left with nothing but the clothes on their backs and $1 to their names. I stood in the doorway and watched them drive away. Then I closed the door. I locked it. I turned around and looked at the empty, quiet house. For the first time in 3 years, the house felt peaceful. But I wasn't done yet. Mark had mentioned a business he was building. A business he built using our joint savings while I wasn't looking. I picked up the phone again. "Mr. Henderson," I said, "before you go, tell me about Section C of the will. The part about debts and liabilities." Mr. Henderson smiled. "Ah, yes. The best part. Let us sit down, Sarah. You are going to enjoy this." Mr. Henderson opened the folder to the 3rd page. The heading read, "Section C, Outstanding Debts and Liabilities." I sat at the head of the dining table. The seat Mark used to claim was for the man of the house. The house was quiet now that the parasites were gone. But the air was thick with tension. "You are going to like this, Sarah," Henderson said, adjusting his glasses. "Do you remember 5 years ago when Mark started his logistics company, MP Shipping?" I nodded. "He told me he secured a business loan from a private investor. He said he was a self-made man." Mr. Henderson chuckled darkly. "Mark is about as self-made as a frozen dinner. He couldn't get a loan from a bank because his credit score was terrible. So he came to Rose." "Rose?" I asked, confused. But Rose lived on a fixed pension. She didn't have that kind of money. Rose was frugal. Mr. Henderson corrected me. She saved every penny her husband left her. She gave him a loan, a massive one. He slid a document across the table. It was a promissory note signed by Mark Patterson. He borrowed $250,000. Mr. Henderson said. My jaw dropped. $250,000? That is Rose's entire life savings minus the house. Exactly, Mr. Henderson said. He took her safety net. And do you know how much he has paid back in 5 years? I looked at the ledger attached to the note. The column under payments received was blank. 0. Mr. Henderson confirmed. He told Rose he was reinvesting the profits. He told her the business was booming but cash flow was tight. Meanwhile, he was buying new cars and taking Linda on vacations. I felt sick. I remembered asking Mark for money to buy Rose a specialized wheelchair cushion that cost $80. He had screamed at me saying we couldn't afford it. He was sitting on $250,000 of her money. And he wouldn't spend $80 to make her comfortable. Here is the catch. Mr. Henderson said, pointing to a paragraph in fine print at the bottom. This is a demand note. It states that the lender can demand full repayment of the principal and interest at any time. And more importantly, it includes a death clause. He read it aloud. In the event of the lender's death, the outstanding balance becomes immediately due and payable to the estate. If the borrower fails to pay within 24 hours of the demand, the estate has the right to seize any and all assets used as collateral. Collateral? I asked. What did he use as collateral? Mr. Henderson smiled. And it was the smile of a shark. He was so arrogant, he didn't think he would ever have to pay it back because he thought he would inherit the note and just tear it up. So he put up everything. His company rocks, his warehouse inventory, his office equipment, even his business accounts. He looked at me. You are the estate now, Sarah. You own this debt. You are his creditor. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the dark driveway where Mark had driven away just an hour ago. He had humiliated me. He had treated me like an employee. Now I was his boss. His bank. Mr. Henderson, I said, turning back to him. What time does Mark's office open in the morning? 9 o'clock. Pick me up at 8:30, I said. I think it is time to collect a debt. I didn't sleep much that night. But for the first time in 3 years, I slept in the master bedroom. I slept in the bed that Mark had banned me from because he said I snored. I don't. I woke up at 7 o'clock. I showered in the master bath. I went into the closet. Mark had taken most of his suits, but he had left behind my clothes. The few nice things I had from before I became a full-time caregiver. I put on a navy blue blazer and tailored trousers. I put on heels. I put on makeup. I looked in the mirror. The tired, red-eyed woman from the funeral was gone. Staring back at me was the CEO of the estate of Rose Patterson. Mr. Henderson arrived promptly at 8:30 in his black sedan. We drove into the city in silence. We pulled up to the industrial park where MP Shipping was located. It was a decent-sized warehouse with a glass-fronted office. The rental he must have picked up last night was in the parking lot. We walked through the front doors. The receptionist, a young girl named Jessica. Why are they always named Jessica? She looked up surprised. Can I help you? She asked, popping her gum. We are here to see Mark. Do you have an appointment? I don't need one, I said, walking past her desk towards Mark's glass office. I could see him through the glass. He was on the phone, pacing back and forth. He looked disheveled. He was wearing the same suit from yesterday, now wrinkled. He was yelling into the receiver. I don't care what the bank says. Just transfer the funds from the operating account. I need a deposit for an apartment by noon. I opened the door without knocking. Mark spun around. I told you I am busy. He stopped. He saw me. Then he saw Mr. Henderson behind me. Sarah? He whispered. Then his face hardened. What are you doing here? Did you come to gloat? Or did you realize you can't run that big house by yourself and came to beg me to come back? I walked over to the guest chairs. Leather chairs that probably cost $1,000 each, bought with Rose's money. I sat down. I am not here to beg Mark. I am here to collect. Collect what? He laughed nervously. I gave you the $500. Mr. Henderson stepped forward and placed a copy of the promissory note on Mark's desk. We are here to collect on the outstanding loan of $250,000 plus accrued interest, the lawyer said, totaling $295,000. Mark looked at the paper. He went pale. This was between me and Mom, he stammered. She told me I didn't have to worry about paying it back right away. Rose is gone, and I am the sole beneficiary of her estate. That means I own your debt. And according to the contract you signed, it is due in full. Today? Mark dropped into his chair. I don't have that kind of money liquid. You know that. It is tied up in the business. Then liquidate the business. I used his own words from yesterday against him. Isn't that what you told me about the house? Sell fast? Split the cash? And move on. You can't do this. Mark whispered. This company is my life. It is my reputation. Your reputation is built on stolen money, I said. You stole from a dying woman to play businessman. I looked at Mr. Henderson. He says he can't pay. Mr. Henderson nodded. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Sheriff Miller? You can bring the boys in. Mark jumped up. What? Through the glass walls of the office, we saw 2 sheriff's deputies and 3 men in jumpsuits walk into the lobby. The men in jumpsuits had asset recovery written on their backs. What is happening? Mark screamed. We are seizing the collateral. Mr. Henderson explained calmly. Since you cannot pay the $295,000, the estate is exercising its right to seize the assets listed in the agreement. That includes the fleet of for-delivery trucks, the forklift, and the office furniture. No. Mark ran to the door. But a deputy blocked his path. You can't take the trucks. I have deliveries scheduled for this afternoon. If I miss those deliveries, I lose my biggest contracts. Not my problem, I said, standing up. Maybe you should have thought about that before you treated your mother like an ATM and your wife like a servant. The movers started marching into the office. One of them walked right up to Mark's desk and started unplugging his computer. Hey, I am using that, Mark yelled. Sir, step away from the asset. The mover said, bored. Mark looked at me, desperation flooding his eyes. Sarah, please, stop them. This will bankrupt me. I will lose everything. The business, the clients, my credit. It will all be gone. You have 24 hours to come up with the money, I said. Until then, operations are suspended. Where am I supposed to get $300,000 in 24 hours? Maybe ask Linda, I suggested with a smile. Oh wait. She only inherited $1, just like you. Just then, the receptionist Jessica walked into the office. She looked scared. Mr. Patterson, she said. The bank is online too. They say there has been a freeze placed on the payroll account. They want to know why. Mark put his head in his hands. It was happening all at once. The house of cards was falling. I am leaving now, I said, smoothing down my blazer. Mr. Henderson will stay to supervise the seizure. I have a lot of work to do. I have to go pick out new curtains for my house. I turned to walk away, but Mark grabbed my arm. It was a reflex. Sarah, wait. Don't touch me, I said. I didn't have to. The venom in my voice made him recoil as if he had touched a hot stove. You kicked me out with $500 and a broken heart. I am leaving you with $0 and a broken ego. I think we are even. I walked out of the office. Past the confused employees. Past the movers carrying out the copy machine. And out into the bright morning sun. I got into Mr. Henderson's car. But I didn't tell the driver to leave yet. I wanted to watch. 10 minutes later, I saw Mark being escorted out of the building by the deputies. He was holding a cardboard box with a stapler and a picture frame in it. He stood on the sidewalk, looking at the trucks being towed away. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number frantically. I knew who he was calling. Linda. And I knew exactly what was about to happen next. Because Mr. Henderson had told me about Section D of the will, the part that pertained to Linda's loans. You see, Mark wasn't the only one who had dipped into the Bank of Rose. Linda had a secret too. A secret that cost $50,000 and involved a little bit of fraud. I sat back in the leather seat. Okay, I said to the driver. Take me to the bank. I need to deposit a check. After watching Mark's business crumble in less than 30 minutes, Mr. Henderson and I went to a quiet cafe for coffee. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. I ordered a latte and a croissant. It was the first meal I had eaten in 3 days without feeling like I was going to throw up from stress. So, I said, stirring my coffee, tell me about Linda. You said she inherited $1 just like Mark, but you also mentioned Section D. Mr. Henderson opened his briefcase again. He pulled out a thick stack of bank statements. Linda likes to pretend she is a successful boutique owner, he said. She tells everyone she built her fashion store from the ground up. But the truth is, her store has been losing money for years. I knew it, I said. She always complained about slow seasons. It wasn't just slow seasons, Sarah. It was a sinkhole. And when the bank stopped lending her money, she didn't come to Rose and ask for a loan like Mark did. No, Linda was too proud for that. Mr. Henderson tapped a finger on a specific bank statement from 2 years ago. Instead, she got hold of Rose's checkbook. Specifically the account Rose used for her medical savings. And she started writing checks to herself. I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach. She stole from her sick mother? She forged Rose's signature. Mr. Henderson said quietly, we found 12 checks totaling $52,000. She used the money to pay her store's rent, buy inventory, and even pay for a trip to Italy last summer. $52,000. I repeated, that is a felony. It is. Mr. Henderson agreed. Rose found out about it 6 months before she died. She was heartbroken. She wanted to call the police then, but she couldn't bear to see her daughter in jail. So she added Section D to the will. He read it to me. The estate acknowledges that Linda Patterson has unlawfully withdrawn $52,000 from the deceased's accounts. Upon my death, the executor is instructed to offer Linda a choice. Repay the stolen amount in 48 hours. Or the executor is mandated to turn over all evidence of forgery and elder financial abuse to the district attorney. I looked at the lawyer. She has 48 hours to find $52,000? Or go to prison, Mr. Henderson said simply. For 5 to 10 years. I stood up. I didn't even finish my croissant. Let us go shopping, I said. I think I need to visit Linda's boutique. We arrived at Linda's Luxe, a trendy clothing store on the expensive side of town. It was 12:30 in the afternoon. The shop was empty of customers, but filled with racks of overpriced dresses. Linda was behind the counter, frantically typing on her phone. She looked stressed. Her hair was messy and her eyes were red. When the door chime rang, she looked up, forcing a fake smile. Welcome to. She stopped. Her face went pale when she saw me, and then it turned red with anger when she saw Mr. Henderson standing behind me. You, she shrieked. You have some nerve coming here. Mark just called me. He told me you shut down his business. You ruined him. I walked over to a rack of silk scarves. I fingered the price tag on one. $300. Bought with Rose's money. I didn't ruin him, Linda. He ruined himself. I just collected a debt. Speaking of debts, I turned to face her. We are here to talk about your inheritance. Linda crossed her arms. I don't want your charity. I know I got $1. You can keep it. Mark is coming over here right now. And we are going to sue you for emotional distress. Mark is coming? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Good. I prefer to kill two birds with one stone. Just then the door flew open. Mark burst in. He looked like a wreck. His tie was gone. His shirt wasn't ucked. And he was sweating despite the cold weather. Linda. He yelled, ignoring me completely. You have to help me. They froze everything. They took the trucks. I need $50,000 right now to hire a lawyer to stop the seizure. Give me the money from the store account. Linda looked at him like he was crazy. Are you joking? I don't have $50,000 lying around. Business is slow. You went to Italy last summer. Mark screamed, getting in her face. You bought a new car. I know you have money. Mom always gave you more than me. Mom gave me nothing. Linda screamed back. Actually, Mr. Henderson interrupted, stepping forward. That is not entirely true. Mom didn't give you money, Linda. You took it. The room went silent. Linda froze. Her eyes darted to the door as if looking for an escape route. What is he talking about? Mark asked, looking between Linda and the lawyer. I walked up to the counter and placed folder marked Section D on the glass surface. Mark, I said calmly. Your sister stole $52,000 from Rose by forging her signature on checks. While I was feeding Rose soup and you were playing golf. Linda was practicing Mom's signature to rob her blind. Mark looked at Linda with pure disgust. You stole from Mom? You told me you were a successful businesswoman. I borrowed it. Linda cried, tears streaming down her face. I was going to pay it back. The store was just having a bad year. For 2 years? Mr. Henderson asked. You forged 12 checks, Linda. We have the forensic analysis. So? Mark started laughing. It was a manic, hysterical laugh. So you can't help me? You are broke too? I am worse than broke. Linda sobbed. You certainly are. Henderson said. According to the will, you have a choice. Pay back the $52,000 to the estate, which means Sarah, within 48 hours. Or I take this file to the police station down the street and file charges for forgery and elder abuse. Linda looked at me. Her face was twisted with fear. Sarah, please. I can't go to jail. I have a reputation. I have friends. You had a mother too, I said. And you left her to die while you spent her medicine money on shoes. I can't pay it, Linda wailed. I have maybe $4,000 in the bank. That is it. Then sell the store, I suggested. Liquidate your assets. Isn't that what you told me yesterday? Sell fast. Split the cash. I can't sell it in 2 days. Then I guess you are going to prison, I said, checking my watch. It is 1 o'clock now. The clock started ticking when Rose died. But let us be generous. You have until 1 o'clock on Thursday. Mark stared at his sister. He realized there was no lifeboat. They were both drowning. And that is when they turned on each other. This is your fault. Mark yelled at Linda. If you hadn't pushed to evict Sarah so fast, none of this would have happened. You were the one who said kick her out before she finds the will. Me? Linda screamed back. You were the one cheating on her. You were the one who brought a mistress to the house on Christmas Eve. If you had just kept your pants on, Sarah would still be nursing Mom and we would be rich. I watched them. Brother and sister, fighting like rats on a sinking ship. They didn't care about Rose. They didn't care about me. They only cared about who to blame for their own greed. Excuse me, I said, interrupting their screaming match. They both looked at me. I am bored, I said. Mark? You have 24 hours to pay $295,000. Linda, you have 48 hours to pay $52,000. If not, Mark loses his career, and Linda loses her freedom. I turned to Mr. Henderson. I think I need a new wardrobe. Since I am the owner of the debt Linda owes, can we seize the inventory in this store as partial payment? Mr. Henderson smiled. Technically, yes. We can file an emergency injunction to lock the doors right now until the debt is settled. Do it. I looked at Linda. I like that scarf. The one for $300. I will take that now. Put it on my tab. Linda was shaking so hard she couldn't speak. She took the scarf off the mannequin and handed it to me. I wrapped it around my neck. It smelled like victory. Get out. What? Mark asked. Get out of my store. I said. I am closing early for inventory. You can wait on the sidewalk. You can't do this. Linda shrieked. I just did, I said. Now leave. Before I call Officer Miller back. I am sure he would love to hear about those forged checks sooner rather than later. Mark grabbed Linda's arm. Come on. We need to call Mom's old friends. Maybe one of them will lend us money. Mom's friends hate us. Linda cried as he dragged her out the door. We didn't invite them to the funeral. They stumbled out onto the street arguing loudly. Passers-by stopped to stare at the disheveled businessman and the crying boutique owner fighting on the sidewalk. Mr. Henderson walked to the front door, flipped the sign to see LOSED, and locked it. He turned to me. Well done, Sarah. That was efficient. I looked around the store filled with clothes I used to dream of wearing but could never afford. Now I owned them all. But I didn't want the clothes. I wanted peace. And I was almost there. Mr. Henderson, there is one thing left. The mistress, Jessica. The one Mark moved into my house. Ah, yes, Mr. Henderson said. The marketing intern. What about her? She was driving a white Mercedes, I said. The one Mark claimed he bought for her. But if Mark's company bought it, then it is a company asset. Mr. Henderson finished my sentence. And since you seized the company assets this morning, that car belongs to me. Mr. Henderson pulled out his phone. I will call the repo team. Do you know where she lives? No, I said. But I know where she is having lunch. She posts everything on Instagram. I pulled up my phone. There she was. A photo posted 10 minutes ago. Jessica holding a glass of rose at the Ivy, captioning it. New life, new car, new man. I showed the phone to Mr. Henderson. Let us go get my car, I said. We pulled up to the Ivy at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was the kind of restaurant where people went to be seen, not to eat. There, sitting at a patio table near the valet stand, was Jessica. She was wearing sunglasses that probably cost $500 and holding a glass of pink wine. She was laughing into her phone, likely recording a video for her followers. Parked right next to her table, gleaming in the sun, was the white Mercedes convertible, the car Mark had bought with his company funds. The car that was technically mine. I stepped out of Mr. Henderson's car. I adjusted my new silk scarf, the one I had just taken from Linda's store. I walked up to Jessica's table. She looked up annoyed that someone was blocking her sunlight. Then she recognized me. She didn't look scared like Mark or Linda. She looked amused. Sarah? She laughed, lowering her sunglasses. What are you doing here? Did you come to apply for a waitress job? I heard Mark kicked you out. So sad. I smiled. Actually, Jessica, I am here for the car. My car? She scoffed. Honey, this is a Mercedes. Mark bought it for me. It is in my name. Well, he said he was going to put it in my name next week. But it is mine. Mark lied. I said simply, Mark bought it through MP shipping. And since I seized MP shipping this morning due to unpaid debts, I own this car. And the keys in your purse. Jessica stood up, knocking her chair over. You are crazy. Mark is the CEO. He has millions. Mark has $0. I corrected her. And as of 10 o'clock this morning, he is unemployed You really should check the news, Jessica. Or at least answer his calls. He has been trying to reach you to ask for a place to sleep. Jessica's face went pale. She looked at her phone. She had 15 missed calls from Mark. He is broke? She whispered. Completely, I said. I signaled to the parking lot entrance. A massive tow truck rumbled into view. The driver backed up right to the Mercedes. The diners at the restaurant stopped eating. Phones came out. You can't do this. Jessica screamed, stomping her foot like a toddler. I have a date tonight. You can take an Uber. Or maybe walk. The tow truck driver hooked up the Mercedes. The alarm started blaring, cutting through the fancy atmosphere of the restaurant. Jessica grabbed her purse and ran towards the car, trying to unhook it. But the driver was faster. He lifted the car into the air. My bag is in there, she shrieked. Consider them a donation to the estate, I said. I turned to leave but stopped and looked back at her one last time. By the way, Jessica, Mark is looking for a roommate. Maybe you two can share a cardboard box. It would be very romantic. I walked away as she stood on the curb screaming at the tow truck driver, humiliated in front of the entire city. 6 months later. It has been half a year since the worst week of my life turned into the best week of my life. A lot has changed. Linda avoided jail but barely. She had to sell her condo and her store to pay back the $52,000 she stole from Rose. She didn't have anywhere to go, so she moved in with a distant cousin in Ohio. Last I heard, she is working as a cashier at a grocery store. She posts on Facebook about how family betrayed her. But no one likes the posts. Mark didn't fare so well. He filed for personal bankruptcy 2 weeks after the funeral. Since he had committed fraud by using business loans for personal expenses, no one would hire him. I saw him once about a month ago. I was sitting in my living room, Rose's living room, which I had redecorated with bright, happy colors. I ordered a pizza. When the doorbell rang, I opened it. And there he was, Mark. He was wearing a uniform for a pizza delivery chain. He looked older, tired. His hair was thinning. He looked at the house he used to think was his. That will be $20. He mumbled, looking at his shoes. I handed him a $50 bill. Keep the change. He looked up, tears in his eyes. He wanted to say something. Maybe I am sorry. Maybe I miss you. But he didn't. He just nodded, turned around and walked back to his rusted sedan. He finally got a job where he actually had to work. Rose would have been proud of him. As for me, I sold MP shipping to a competitor for a very healthy profit. I kept the house. I turned the guest wing, the one Mark and Lyndon ever visited, into a small sanctuary for elderly people who can't afford nursing homes but don't want to be alone. I hired 2 full-time nurses to help me. I named it the Rose Garden. Every morning I drink my coffee on the porch. I look at the garden, and I touch the locket around my neck. The one Rose left me in the jewelry box. Inside is a picture of us laughing. They thought I was weak because I was kind. They thought I was stupid because I was quiet. They thought they could throw me away like trash because I didn't have a fancy title or a big bank account. But they forgot the most important rule of life. Be careful who you step on while you are climbing the ladder, because you might meet them on your way down. And if you do, I hope you have more than $500 in your pocket, because Severance pay is a bitch.